Welcome to Flesh and Pod, a flesh and blood podcast, breaking down weekly news and notes from the tournament scene, community drama, game strategy, and more. And now, here are your hosts, Darick and Logan.
Hello, welcome to episode 175 of Flesh and Pod. My name is Logan. I am your host. With me, as always, is a man that probably didn't attend his armory.
Okay, I'm gonna stop you right there. I didn't do shit. All right, like let's just get it out of the way. I was saying it before you hit the record button. I am the most underprepared for this week's episode that I am. I didn't play any Flesh and Blood. I didn't watch any Flesh and Blood. It has taken everything I have to not crash out as a human being. Did you know that Tim Snyder, like the Yale historian, has fled the United States, saying it is akin to 30s Germany? Why are we recording this? We should be packing up. I am in full emotional panic and distress and crash out mode. Work has been insanely crazy. The kids have a number of like doctor's appointment stuff that popped up. We just had to get Stark replacement glasses because he got a hell of a black eye at school the other day. They don't call it gym now. They call it kinetics. Basically got ran over by a kid. It was his friend. It was an accident, but huge black eye. Thought he even might need to get stitches, broke his glasses. So we've got like doctor's appointments and after school activities and all of this stuff, but also I don't know how long the after school activities are going to go. Heck, I don't even know if like my youngest son will be able to go to school because soon IEPs won't be a thing, let alone the Department of Education. I don't know if I'm going to play card games ever again because I am pretty sure that they're just going to be illegal by like next week at this point. You know, especially Flesh and Blood coming from New Zealand. I heard if the Penguins are getting tariffs, then Flesh and Blood is getting tariffs. That's what I'm saying. So no, I didn't do anything. I am hanging on by a thread. The closest thing to something sane that I did was on Sunday. We took Monroe to his first ever hibachi experience. That was enjoyable, but before we went there, we were shopping because our coffee maker has it was on its last leg. Like it was barely working because I drink like 10 cups of coffee a day. I wish that was an exaggeration or hyperbole.
It is not an exaggeration.
Yeah. So that thing, like we put some mileage on it and we had to replace it. And the only thing I can say that I am proud of was that I did not go down the toaster aisle or the ceiling fan aisle the way that I wanted to. So that is the way that I am choosing to celebrate now in the moment. But just know you're on thin ice. That's what I'm saying here. Okay. No, I didn't play Flesh and Blood.
Okay. Well, at least we got that out of the way though. So I'm just going to make sure this is out there. We are technically a Flesh and Blood podcast. Technically.
I missed After Dark.
You did.
Because of work stuff.
However, with the condition of specifically the country in which we both reside, how do you put this? The dooming about the world that writ large is most likely going to be a expanding threshold for as long as this show is allowed to proceed. I have the, I guess, privilege of leaving this country tomorrow. Who knows what will happen in the time that I'm gone? I'm gone for 10 days.
I know what's going to happen while you're gone. And it's a legendary Levia specialization. Excuse me, Levia. Sorry, I'm going to say Levia if the world is ending. I don't care anymore.
Which one? What are
Doomsday.
Doomsday, that one? Okay. It's highly possible that there will be nothing for me to come back to. And I don't know. That we are at that point in this country and in the United States of America that I don't know. Good. Your guess is as good as mine. And we'll get to pieces of the why, as we go through this episode. But the long story short is there are abominable things happening on a daily basis in this country. We have decided that what the answer to all our problems are, what the administration in charge of this country has decided is that tariffing everybody, literally, even countries that are not populated by fucking humans, because they're not actual countries, really. They just are a territory of another country, but are independently registered, and so you levy a 10% tariff on them.
Do you want to know what they did it by?
ChatGPT.
Yeah, but do you know why it's these individual spaces that were separated from their countries? Do you want to know why an island that's only inhabited by penguins is separate?
Because it's closer to Antarctica than the country?
No. It would, all of these things make more sense than what it actually is, but it also makes complete sense once you do know that it was done by AI. I'm not even convinced it was GPT. I think it was shitty Grok, but that's something else entirely. It's because they separated it by anything that has its own domain, and I mean internet domain. So like, how there's .ca for Canada, right? That's its own country domain. Well, so some of those locations, even though they're, say, a part of Australia or a part of the Arctic or whatever, they also have their own internet domain, including like an Antarctic research station. And so that's what it was separated by. Not anything that has to do with actual borders, but literally the made up fucking internet shit. Like that is why we're tariffing penguins.
Huh. Okay. I now understand that there's no point in time that I ever think this can't get any worse, because I've been proven wrong at all points in time. And we also have the imminent declarations of the Insurrection Act that will probably happen right about the time I'm coming home, which then makes it so that the military can just occupy cities and shut down protests, which are part of our constitutional rights, which are suspended under the Insurrection Act, blah, 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 blah. Okay. That's what's happening here. And as I said, I'm lucky enough to get to leave tomorrow, I hope. And who knows what will happen when I'm gone. I don't know. It could be anything. But I digress. We are still, in theory, a Flesh and Blood show. And we're still going to talk about Flesh and Blood. Which it sadly does seem to be feel more and more, I don't know, fruitless. I mean, the escape from reality just isn't easy enough, talking about the game. But we're still going to do it because that's what we have done, or, for 175 weeks in a row. And here we are. There were Flesh and Blood events this weekend, by the way. None of them in the United States, thank God. The first one was in Dublin. There was a Battle Hardened won by Martin Holik on Enigma, which has seemed to become a popular choice as it targets Aurora fairly well, from what I understand. And the top 8 was 3 Auroras, 2 Enigma, a New, a Riptide, and a Dash Inventor Extraordinaire. A couple of those might seem a little off kilter, specifically the Riptide and the Dash. Can't speak for the Riptide at all. I don't know. The Dash, I know, is a Dash enthusiast, as it were. So when that happens, when there are Dash enthusiasts, typically they, especially when the meta is in a bit of a holding pattern, with one deck being at the top, decks like that can come and do their thing. But I I wouldn't put too much stock in Riptide or Dash out of this event. It was also, I think, like an 86 person battle hardened or something. Wasn't super huge. And I think Jakarta was 35. So neither of them super huge. I know a lot of people are just in Pro Tour prep specifically locking in for that. So I think the call outs here are the top of the the list as far as the represented heroes being Aurora and Enigma. That makes the most sense to me.
Yeah. I've been saying for a bit, I think Enigma was better than what the initial showings were. And I know that the consensus was that Enigma was going to struggle against, Syndra, potentially Aurora because of the ability to go wide, etc. But I just felt like, again, good pilots on that deck can really make it go the extra mile, and they can really extend the game state. And the biggest thing for me is, even if you're just talking about conversions into top eights, even if it's not always wins, Enigma's just really good against the rest of the field. Like, that's the part. If you're somebody who, if you can work out your Aurora and your Syndra matchups and those things where you would expect Enigma to struggle, knowing that you're just going to be really good against the rest of the field, I think that you can go a long way in some of these events. So I'm not surprised by this at all.
Yeah, and I know that Enigma's made most that deck list has evolved.
Yeah, it is not the same Enigma that we were playing at like US Nats last year, for example.
No, it is if I'm going to the list now because it's up on the mothership, if I recall. We're looking at things like you're playing Manifestations, Rage Spectre, and Restless Coalescence, and that's really the majority of your ward, and that's pretty close to it. Everything else is an attack or a chi generation or a defense react. Like, it is, and then obviously 10,000 year reunion. And I noticed that a lot of them are just playing Essence of Ancestry Body now, which makes sense.
Yeah,
because it's it just basically cancels out an attack for one of those, for one of the red line type decks, right? So so you get the ward 2 off of it, plus ward 2 and a block, God knows how much, into those matchups. That's pretty good. But I think it's very interesting that they have just kind of turned into never mind doing the whole, like, I'm going to play a bunch of ward and sit behind this and do this and do this. Like, no, just kill them. Just fucking get them dead. And it's like, it's a good plan. I think that's
it does in fact feel like a pretty good plan.
Yeah. And so I think it's fascinating with the way this all works out, and vacuum's wrong, but it's fascinating to me how this all works out just in general with the way that we have predictability to a degree, right? Mm-hmm. We have the 3 Auroras, you have 2 Illusionists, and then you have some stuff. And so that's probably going to hold pretty heavily. So we go to look at Jakarta, right? We have Hans Christian winning on Prism. The finals were a Prism Enigma mirror, or Prism Enigma matchup. And the top 8 was 3 Aurora, 1 Prism, 1 Enigma. So 3 Aurora, 2 Illusionists, a Verdance, and Azalea and Akatsu. So, and then 3 off meta decks. So it's starting to feel pretty predictable.
Yeah.
Now the weird part is, because of how good Aurora is, it doesn't make it any more targetable, sadly.
No, not really.
Nope. It just is what it is. And Syndra's pretty much gone. That's one of the outliers. Florian is another one of the outliers. Vinset's another one of the outliers. Fang's another one of the outliers. They just kind of hang out in the back and kind of put their copies in, but you're going to see 3 Aurora and 2 Illusionists.
I was going to say, I feel like it's essentially, there are what I would describe in any top 8 as like 2 wild card slots, and there's a lot of heroes that can fall into that. But I expect almost every top 8 going forward to be like 3 Aurora, 2 Enigma, 1 new, 2 wild cards. Like,
sure, if
I was an odds maker, like that just feels right to me right now.
Yeah, sure. So let's hop into predictions. I did put this in the notes because I fucking forgot, but let's hop into predictions. So what is your London top 8 prediction? What are the heroes?
3 Auroras, 2 Enigmas.
We're going to start there.
And then my 2 wild card spots. As much as I respect the dash and the Riptides here for the Dublin thing, I do not think that will be ran back. I'm gonna go with out of those last 2 spots, I'm gonna say 1 Florian, because I think that deck is also just kind of incredible right now when it's piloted by very skilled people. And the last slot, this might be my hot take, but I don't know why, it's entirely a gut feeling. I feel like we are going to be looking at I think we're going to see a Dio. I think it's going to be a Dash IO. I could also see it being a Fang. I keep going back and forth between those two. I think that people are starting to figure out Fang. I think Fang is kind of just like on the rise, especially because Fang, so like whenever you're going to big events, you have to be an absolutely good skilled player to win at TCGs. But like one of the old hard and fast rules when I think back to playing, other games, now granted other games also relied a bit more on variance, so I don't think this is as important in Flesh and Blood, but it used to be that you wanted to play the best deck in the format unless if you were uncomfortable with the best deck or whatever, then usually you would go with the one that has the potential to be streaky, right? Like if you can play decks that have the potential to kind of, accidentally win, or give you just like a free win or two based on circumstance. And I think that as people are getting more reps on Fang and they're kind of figuring out, hey, I like, turn 1 or 2 or even turn 0 if you've got an insane hand, like the moment that you can get the 3 fealty early on in the game, it becomes a real problem. Like that's a moment where it's not that it becomes unwinnable for your opponent, but it's certainly tipping the scales heavy in your favor, right? If you ever watch sports, and now they always do these like live betting things now that, again, I kind of personally hate it on the sports broadcasts, but I understand why it's normalized now. But you'll see the things where it's like percentage to win, right? And they'll do it throughout the game. And it's like it has the spikes and
go watch the Duke Houston Final Four game if you want to see what this looks like.
Yeah, or go back and watch the old Patriots Falcon thing where it's got the biggest drop off in sports betting history.
That cliff is deeper than the fucking stock market right now.
Right. But I think that if you're just talking about decks where if your goal is very early on to skyrocket your chances of winning, Fang is up there because again, the explosive starts. Like a lot of decks are capable of explosive starts because they can just get a good hand that pops off. The problem is that what makes Fang pop off is something that sticks around. It's not like, oh, I do a setup and I do a big turn. As long as you have that 3 fealty, you can have even just 3 card monstrous turns, right? Like it allows so much flexibility in your game plan. So I don't know, maybe I'm talking myself into Fang replacing my Dash IO. I just also think that Dash IO has the ability to sneak in. It's still an incredibly explosive, aggressive deck, and it is also a deck that's capable of stealing victories, but I think I'm think I've talked myself out of it. Like I'm going to say Fang will be my last spot. So 3, 2, 1, and then I'll say Florian and a Fang.
Yeah, I think I'm 3-2. Obviously, the 3 Auroras, the 2 Enigmas, and then I definitely agree on Florian. I think a lot of good players will be playing Florian. I think Florian is a good choice just in general. Deck is consistent, does the thing. Then we kind of are going to dovetail off a little bit. I think that you're going to see an ice aggro Jarl. We're talking pummeling Frostfangs. And a Zen. So I think that Zen has been one of those things where people have been cooking, hoping, as a backup plan, to him LLing, like they could just play Aurora, right? Mm-hmm. If Jakarta or Dublin had gone a different direction. So I could easily see that being the case. I don't think we created the perfect storm to have a Ozuri again, mainly because New did not pop up in percentage. It just isn't winning at the rate that I would expect it to, I guess would be the best way to put it. But I've seen the Ice Jarl deck work, and I could see somebody that's been in the lab or a team that's been in the lab working that up and having it. And if it's, you put it in the hands of a really good player and they could pilot that to a finish. It's really hard for me not to pick Verdance, because a really good Verdance pilot, and there are several, can do a lot of damage. And I know that, you have several good Verdance pilots out there. The same thing with Vincent, where you have all kinds of good Vincent pilots out there. Peter Budensick and Mara. Kevin Murphy should play that deck and doesn't. But I'm going to levy that criticism at all points in time. So yeah, I feel like those are all just, up there as contenders. But if I'm going to take my wild card slots, I think it's Florian, Jarl, and Zen. I think that's my wild card spots. Who do you have winning this, by the way? On what?
This is maybe a hot take, but I'm gonna say, well, I guess no. I was almost gonna say Brody, just coming back. Like he's just been in the dungeon, right?
That wouldn't surprise me.
Fresh mind, not having to, have the jet lag from all the travel, just all focus, So like the thought has crossed my mind that like he as weird as it sounds, could potentially actually be a favorite because of that. But I think I would say if Michael Feng plays Aurora, I think it's him. That's who I'm going to go with. And if it's not him, then I think that it is Pablo. Like if I could see if Pablo was playing Enigma, that he could do it as well.
I think Pablo and Enigma, if Pablo's playing Enigma, I think that's a really good bet. I think, when we start listening to that top 8, I would probably be, that's hard. I want, like, I would think of Florian as very good into winning this in, the hot take that's sitting in my head is just to say Erica Forsloff on Florian, because she's incredibly good at the game. She knows what she's doing at all points in time. And I know she's on Florian, and has the nails to match. I don't know. Like it just has this like gut take of like good player, tuned deck, understanding matchups, smash face. Right. Mm-hmm. And I don't know. That sounds like Erica on Florian to me, but the Brody thing is interesting. I had like this whole thing built in my head. So in Milwaukee, the team was supposed to be Michael Hamilton, Michael Fang, and Brody, but obviously Brody couldn't play. So Jacob Clemens filled in, cosplaying as Brody, had the goggles on, all the 9 yards.
Did he have the sandwiches?
He might have actually. But the funny part is Brody was there too, like just in the building. But like my headcanon had created that he had just decided to move to London to be completely acclimated for when everybody else showed up. Obviously that got busted when he showed up in Milwaukee. I'm like, God damn it. But it was very funny because Barrett Goss had went around the room to find a bunch of Spurlocks and then have Jacob sign them as Brody and number them, because that's what Brody had been doing for people, is numbering the Spurlocks that he signed. But he signed it Brody with an I and no E. And I mean, it was actually just quite funny. And then obviously Barrett showed them to Brody, who's like, what the hell is this? But it wouldn't have surprised me whatsoever if Brody had just decided to move to London for 2 months and just grind and be on the correct time.
Yeah, I mean that's what I keep coming back to, right? Is like I mean, it sounds like he's still traveling with his team, still doing the thing, and I also love that for him as well. But he has a lot less, to potentially like be a burden or cloud it or whatever, right? So the thought did cross my mind, like maybe he just shows up and does the thing,
Very easily could. And it's hard to, I mean, obviously the thought of ring rust is there. But is it?
Right.
I mean, is it? Yeah, maybe it's in his head a little bit that he has to play a bit faster, maybe that's part of it. Or, there's so many little pieces to this, but at the end of the day, the dust is settled. We're taking everything at the value of what it is. Brody Spurlock is potentially the best Flesh and Blood player in the world. He's in the discussion. So you can't really do anything about that. Like if he decided to play Vibes, have you played Vibes? Have you seen Vibes yet?
No.
Okay. It's the dumbest fucking card game. And it's based in NFTs. So do I need to keep going? Are we good?
I've heard all I need to hear.
Okay, perfect. They have
let me put it to you in a way that you may understand. Okay. I would choose to play a poor, cryptid, shitty card game that Dagon White is banned from before I would play any game involved with NFTs.
There we go. And so, at any rate, Dagon's playing this game, and so we were scouting this game driving back from Milwaukee because reasons, and as we're going through and finding just how fucking stupid this game is, like Dagon was like, is there an online client? He's like, hey, I found the online client, but it won't work on mobile. Okay, we're off to a killer start, right? And I'm like, okay. And he's like, oh wait, there's like ladder rankings. And he's like, the #1 ladder ranking is dummy thick. What the fuck is this? I'm like, okay, well, I've heard all I need. This game is going to be a rousing success at $144 a booster box.
I'm so proud of you.
Why are you proud of me?
Because you just made a pun, whether you know it or not.
Did I?
Yeah.
How?
The #1 person is dummy thick, and there's going to be an arousing success.
God damn.
Yeah.
Well, time for me to go walk down the fucking ceiling fan aisle. Okay. But apparently this CCG is just, it exists. It's not sold basically anywhere. You can get it on Star City. That's about it. And I've never seen, not since MetaZoo have I seen anything that looks so fucking stupid.
Yeah.
Good work. I don't know. It is very crypto bro NFT card game.
Yeah.
I
heard there's an alternate win condition where if you make your ape extra bored, then you get to automatically win.
You're pretty close, honestly, because you're supposed to vibe up your penguins. And so the penguin with the highest
So why didn't you lead with that? Because now I know why it's only on Star City. This is a game designed by penguins, and it's been hit with the tariffs, so it can't make it here. Oh, okay.
Yeah. So it's all penguin based. And so you need to vibe up your penguins, because the penguin with the coolest penguin, as determined by how much it's vibing, gets the favor of King Knucklefuck or whatever the king penguin thing is. And you need his favor at the beginning of your turn in order to win the game. I don't. Right. In any rate. So yes, you're trying to vibe up your penguins, and all the penguins are every meme you've ever seen. Just insert penguins. So this is fine meme, but instead of a dog in the chair, it's a penguin. And yeah, I couldn't. I just couldn't at that point. We're done. So if anybody's interested in vibes, though, it exists. Most I'm going to say about it is that it exists. Any rate, moving on. Anything else you want to talk about at the Pro Tour related to Pro Tour London?
Nope.
Perfect. Moving on, the 2025 convention exclusives are out. So obviously we know that Fab has a convention presence as of really last year. And last year they gave away blazes at conventions, and outside of winning a skirmish, that was the only way to get one. So being a very blitz playable hero, people were scrambling pretty hard. It was met with a lot of criticism, yada, yada, yada. So this year, your convention exclusives are an extended art rainbow foil Puffin and Marlin, the young heroes. Is that an overcorrection?
I don't think so.
No? Maybe not. But it's hard to say. So we have... There'll be Marvel versions of the young heroes, I'm sure.
I think... So let me put it this way, right? I understand why some folks might think that is an overcorrection. And it's in part because for entrenched players who wanted to play Blaze, prices were inflated. It was potentially hard to find and whatever. And so folks might be thinking that this change is as a direct result of feedback in that vein, right? Like, hey, you know, shouldn't have done it this way. Shouldn't have been exclusive heroes, whatever. But I guess for me, I just am looking at it from a different perspective, which is that LSS doesn't always make all of their decisions through the lens of, you know, just the entrenched player experience. And I think that if we're looking at year 2 of conventions, right, hopefully what they have learned is that they actually get a lot of new player, foot traffic and what matters to them and whatever. And so when you are trying to convert new players and they're earning, potentially a cool promo or whatever, it would be helpful if it was something where they learn it, and then if they like that character, then they can go play the adult version or go have something to be excited about. And Blaze is not necessarily the most new hero friendly character. No adult version currently, etc., etc. And yes, again, out of the gate, it made sense to me, right? Get your players potentially excited to show up at conventions because it was their first time doing them at that scale. And so maybe they didn't know what to expect, right? Are people going to, show up and care? Is it going to be worth our time? Maybe if we get, our existing Flesh and Blood fan base involved, it'll make that transition smoother. But then I think what probably happened, and I'm basing this based on the conventions I did attend and, what I saw, which was the outstanding revolving door at Gen Con, where just every learn to play was packed. The tables where people were learning were always packed, etc.
At all points in time. Yeah.
I think that they likely have said, okay, what is going to best serve the convention experience in that regard? And so, yes, I can see where some folks might think it was an overcorrection, but from a business standpoint, I'm also totally on board with what this potentially does as a gateway for people who are maybe interacting with the game for the very first time at these conventions.
Yeah, I think that's well put. And especially if they are, I mean, they're going to be featuring the High Seas Blitz decks, specifically when we're talking about Gen Con, really. And so it's like people are like, oh, wow, I really enjoyed playing Puffin or Marlin or Young Gravy or whatever. And so it turns it, it's right there. It's right fucking there. And so, it's like, oh, well, thank you. Here's your Puffin. You really enjoyed Puffin. Here's a cool looking Puffin, Mm-hmm. So yeah, that makes sense to me. I just hope, because if you look at Blazes right now, the Rainbow Foil Convention ones are like $30, which is still a non-zero amount, right? Like it's still it's like having to buy a Majestic for your deck.
Mm-hmm.
The cold foils are $100, but these are probably not going to hold that kind of value, is my guess, because you can get a Puffin to play with that. Nope. Did not like how that sounded, but you can get a copy of the hero card Puffin to use in playing Blitz out of a pack of High Seas. Now, let's not talk about how much a pack of High Seas is going to cost yet, but that's something that you can get without having to go to a convention. Whereas Blaze, you kind of had to know a guy or know somebody that was going to be there that didn't want theirs or that was going to get multiples, and it's a whole thing. But it seems like, I don't know, it feels overcorrecty to me, but I understand where you're coming from. Yeah, that's all I had there, but we have questions with meat on the bones. They ain't gravy bones. They're real things. And we should talk about them.
I guess.
You don't want to?
I don't want to do shit.
But I appreciate you coming on here and not wanting to do shit with me. How do we ever make it this far?
Stubbornness.
Yeah, that's probably the word. Yeah. That makes a lot of sense, honestly.
Yeah, stubbornness.
I mean, I'm taking recording shit with me to London so I don't miss an episode.
Exactly.
And that means I'm recording at 3 a.m. in London.
Mm-hmm.
Do you know how fucking foolish that is?
I bet you're going to be pretty lonely.
Am I?
Yeah, Matchbox 20 said something about it once.
It's 3 a.m. I hate everything. Is that Matchbox 20?
Yes.
Okay, all right, fine.
Yes.
I will concede the point. I don't have the energy to even give to that right now. But it'll be 3 a.m. and I will be in a hotel room in London on Monday morning after a weekend of flesh and blooding. Or maybe Tuesday. I don't know. Like, it all depends. But I'll be making sure I can record a show while away so we don't miss our streak. So the streak doesn't end. We still keep it going because I want to hit episode 200, which I said I never wanted to do.
But we're going to do it.
We're going to do it anyway.
Because listen, we're not going to let our streak get ruined
by geopolitics.
Like we're Asuka against Charlotte Flair.
Man, that was bullshit.
Right? Like,
but
we're not going to get our streak ruined by a cattle prod,
Well, I mean, fuck Goldberg. But
sure, but also that was a really lame.
Yeah, it was really bad. But Tiffany Stratton did point out that Charlotte is currently on another streak of 0 for 3, though. which was apparently an unsanctioned blast from what I've read. If you are in the know with professional wrestling, shots were taken, and most of the time it's scripted, but sometimes wrestlers go into business for themselves. Yeah. And when they do that, they take shots or liberties, as they would say if it was in the ring. But in a promo, it's just you start firing shots off that are not scripted. And there's some pretty good ones in the last couple weeks. So,
I mean, my favorite of all time, you know, say what you want about the guy, but when John Cena called out The Rock for writing his promo on his wrist.
On his hand? Yeah.
Yeah. That one every time that's you know, it's like a good movie. It's like Jurassic Park. If I'm flipping through the channels and it comes on TV, I'm going to watch Jurassic Park. If I'm scrolling through social media and the clip comes up of John Cena calling him out for that, like, I'm going to watch it.
Well, there's also the one where most of these involve Cena, but there's also the one where Cena was just dunking on Roman, and Roman like forgot his promo, and Cena's just leaning on the ropes and he goes, "It's called a promo, kid.
You're going to have to learn to do one.
You have to learn to do it at some point." And it's just like, Jesus Christ. All right. Just, you know, bury them, I guess. That's what you're good at. Although Cody calling Cena a piece of shit was pretty good. But Cena definitely destroyed Cody with about a 45-second bust. Because the crowd went from booing as soon as Cena started talking to chanting his name as soon as he was done. And it's like, you lose. That sucks for you. Can't get over. Anyway, enough wrestling talk for now. Let's go to listener questions. First one is from Sephiroth. Should LSS review their stance on not utilizing hero-specific bans? I understand why cards get banned, and that's not an issue. However, almost every time they ban a card, it's because one hero was abusing it. Regardless how many other heroes played that card, only one hero truly abused it. When they ban the cards to keep the format healthy from that one hero being too powerful, they end up hurting it, if not just neutering another hero. They did give a bunch of examples here. I'll go ahead and kind of page through them really quick. Zen getting Bonds of Ancestry banned, killing Katsu. Aurora being the reason Cashin is banned, hurting Kasai. There's more than one reason for that, by the way. Dash IO and High Octane making Max unplayable. Zen getting Art of War banned. Zen's a 2-time fucking offender. Hurting Leviah. But again, Syndra, they do acknowledge this, that Syndra does exist, which can't have Art of War.
Yeah. So a number of these feel weird to me because it's like, yes, the ban came during Zen's period, but you have to understand that during the history of the game, Art of War, for example, had calls for it to be banned
several times.
A lot of times, right? From Chain to Phi to whatever, right? Like, just because it happened during Zen, like, it wasn't just Zen. It's just that was the point when they, and that's why, you know, it was the book burning, right? Like, that was the point when they just looked at it as a whole and they said, hey, core tenet of this game is supposed to be the tension in your hand, right? Like, those cards are literally your resources. And so when you can continue to refill them, even if those cards are of lower quality, it doesn't matter. Like, you're just going to win the resource game, right? Like, it's the number one easiest way to abuse the game. So they tried to take a look at it. And I do feel like Cash-In is another good example, except for that one is preemptive. Like, yes, maybe was fine on certain heroes, but I think when they know what they know about future sets and with what we know now about High Seas coming and it also looking to be very gold centric, I'm guessing that when they were looking at a lot of those like draw 2 effects, they went, hey, this one's probably just safer if we do it now. Right.
It also limits design space in general when you have to keep thinking about, well, we have to remember Art of War, you know, or we have to remember Toma Fyendal or whatever the thing is, right? Mm-hmm. I got in this discussion with somebody who was a unrepentant FI player, complaining about the Art of War ban and basically saying, you can't tell me that banning Art of War was the right decision. And I'm like, yes, I can. Like, here, I'll do it. Banning Art of War was the right decision. You see how easy that was? And I mean, that turned into a discussion. I'm like, listen, yeah, in FI, totally fine. In Zen, not fine at all.
Well, but again, current FI, right?
Correct.
So if we're talking about like hero specific stuff, FI already, like let's wind back the clock, right? We also had the belittle
minnowism was a giant
right?
problem in FI.
And that was a giant problem in FI. And Stubbies was also going to be like a giant problem in FI.
Yeah,
right?
Absolutely not.
But again, it's not just FI. Like Stubbies would be a giant problem in a number of heroes today. Belittle minnowism was already a giant problem in other heroes, not just FI. And even on this podcast, you and I had talked about several times, and I kept saying my biggest problem with the belittle minnowism thing was less what it was doing to the game in terms of power level, but also that
deck
unlike other strong generics, and I get it, there's a lot of people who have a hard on for like, let's just get rid of all the generics or whatever, and they want CNC gone and whatever. But the difference is that you include CNC when you build a deck because like by itself in a vacuum, the card is just good as like a standalone thing, but the rest of your deck is probably still playing the way your hero plays. Belittle minnowism didn't matter what hero you were playing those two cards in, that became a belittle minnowism deck.
As long as you
figured out the rest, right? Like
right.
It didn't matter if it was Fi or Briar or whoever, the card warped the way you played your hero in an unhealthy way. And so like I felt those needed to be addressed, and obviously they were. But my point is, again, you know, I think that a lot of people, when these bans or suspensions or whatever occur, they're looking through the lens of what is the problem now? Okay, Zen is a problem now, so they're banning it because of Zen, and it's going to ruin everything else. But the problem is not just that one hero now. It could have also been a problem before, or it could be a problem upcoming. And if other heroes are not playable because that card is gone, right? That's a problem with those other heroes that needs to be addressed in other ways. Like one hero shouldn't be supported by one card in a perfect world. Now, I do also understand that there are several heroes and classes that are really only relevant right now because of a small handful of cards enabling some powerful turns. I'm an offender of that, right? Like I love Assassin. Assassin has a lot of really good stuff, but especially like early Outsiders Assassin was absolutely carried by Codex. Like just full stop. Like you won or lost because you made all your other turns be tight decisions, and then you had really good Codex turns and you could sneak in victories. Like that was the early Outsiders experience on Assassin. So it does happen. But I think in a perfect world, you don't want heroes to only be viable because of these cards, right? You want them to be fleshed out. Now, it sucks if you're the player who really enjoys that hero because you're stuck waiting your turn for them to be relevant. And sometimes that's a short wait. Sometimes that's a much longer wait, right? But this is a big game. It's a legacy format game in terms of having all of the heroes that are not living legends still be available, right? It's a non-rotating format. All of those things are very difficult. You know, I say this about card games all the time. If card games were easy, then there'd be a lot more of them be successful. But I'll go a step further with Flesh and Blood and say, you know, if non-rotating formats were easy, then we'd see a whole lot more of those too. And of the other successful games, not everybody's really doing it. So, and definitely not to that degree. So I give them a pass, right? Like they have to have time to figure it out, and they have to have time to develop things and re-envision the way they want certain heroes to function. And they, you know, and they might miss even when they try, right? Sometimes they might throw support. I know, you know, with the Max Armory deck and whatever, there's a lot of, at least currently, negative feedback. They might miss when that happens, but at least they're trying, right? And I would rather have them do that than just so for me personally, I would rather have them do that than just like leave things be problematic for other heroes. But I personally don't like the idea of hero specific bans because of the same reasons I don't traditionally like errata. I think that things when it comes to the rules of the game, both in and out, so like during the course of playing the game, but also outside of the game when you're deck building and planning, it should be as streamlined and simple as possible, right? I don't like errata because I believe that if it says something on a card, it should do what the card says, if at all possible, right? It's just easiest way to streamline things for the players involved during the course of the game. Similarly, I think that cards legality should be on or off. No in between. It shouldn't be like it's only okay if it's this hero, you know, or like I like that Flesh and Blood does, you know, full suspensions, not like restrictions where you're only allowed to play one or whatever.
Outside of Living Legend.
Outside of Living Legend, right? But like Living Legend is already like you don't dip your toe. So again, it's about that accessibility, no. Right? Like you don't dip your toe into the game for the first time with Living Legend. So I give it a pass there. And also that's the only way that they're going to have that long-term format be healthy. But when you're just talking about like the core gameplay experience, if at all possible, I just really prefer it to be an all or nothing thing. And also like, the last thing I want to say about this is that, like, again, it's something I've said in the past. I think we sometimes forget that LSS is still not a massive company, right? No. They are a successful company. They should be very proud of everything that they're doing. They have been growing, etc. But they're not a massive company, right? They're still a smallish company based out of New Zealand. So when you talk about like development time and play testing time and QA time, they only have so many cycles. And so when you start talking about like these changes and then you think about like, okay, you know, if we think that there's potentially a problem, somebody has to propose a solution, then you likely want to do some play testing. Like you don't just want to like say, hey, we're going to do this. Everybody okay with it? Yep. And then you ship it. Like that's not good work. And it's not what I expect them to do. I expect them to, you know, vet out what feels good for the heroes, vet out what feels good from a balance perspective, a player experience perspective. And the moment that you start introducing even just the possibility of hero specific ones, then that means that the community will now kind of hold you accountable for saying like, hey, this should be allowed in this hero currently because this hero would be fine with it. Right. And so even just looking at like the existing suspending list, like I could go through and I could pick a number of heroes that technically it's probably fine to play Art of War on, but do we really need to go back and revisit that? Right. Like, is it worth it for us to go back and say, well, Betsy's allowed Art of War and Olympia is allowed, you know, belittle and minnowism because he's weapon based, but he's still, you know, you can't have all these other heroes that can't have this. And, you know, Olympia's not allowed cash in, but like just all or nothing in my mind is just the easiest, cleanest way. So that's what I'm a proponent of.
Yeah, I don't think that you know me, and the errata is the worst fucking thing in the world to me. A card should do what it says it does on the printing of the card, but I also agree with having, if you're going to ban a card, just ban it. I want one list that I can reference to see what's legal. I don't want multiple lists. So I have to keep checking if I want to play a different hero, if it's legal or not. And there's also design constraints. There are a bunch of other things that then aren't solved because the card is still legal. And so now you have to review any new hero and say, hey, we're just preemptively banning this card for this hero. And at that point in time, just why? Just get rid of it. And then print something down the road that is, you know, more specific to the heroes that need help. You know, like if they printed a cash in that was a warrior card, right? So Olympia, Betsy, Kasai, you know, Dory, you know, Fang, but probably wouldn't want to, could all play it, you know? That's fine. I think that's completely reasonable. But outside of that, I don't think that really adding that complication is not good for the game in general. So I agree. Next question's from One Hit Wookie on Charmer's other podcast. That's cute that he thinks that that's the other podcast. He said how he uses Gamegenic stuff for his cards, mats, and tokens. What tokens do you both use for Fab, and what does Logan use for taking his gear to armories and tournaments? Tokens. I use the dice for like armor, the armor dice. I'm trying to remember where they come from now. Why am I blanking? But he's just grabbing shit now. But yeah, I use it's not Fab Metal tokens. At any rate, I use the traditional dice that they use on stream for tokens. And then like if I'm using a token from the game, so like a hero token or weapon tokens, I just use those or the prettiest versions of them I can find most of the time because I am a glutton for shiny things. Taking my gear, I use this. This is my bag, my Flesh and Pod bag. Hooray! I use this. It's just a messenger bag. Holds all my stuff. Has pockets. Has my stuff in it. And for right now, for like my deck boxes and stuff, I'm using these. So I bought a bunch of these white boxes from Pirate Labs when they went out of business. And I'm having artists do basically drawing on them as I go to events. So at this next event in London, I'll have one or two of the artists do a box for me. I sent 3 of them for easier to do. At the end of kind of this project, I will likely just, my intent, I should say, is to just auction them all off for charity. So yeah, that's basically how I carry everything and what my setup is like. Pretty simple. Darick went and grabbed a bunch of stuff.
Yeah. So I will do my best to also describe this for my audio listeners. So I have a backpack that I used to take to my card gaming stuff for the longest time. It was like this gray thing, but this year, earlier, I switched to a Legends of Runeterra backpack that I got from when I did coverage for Riot that they were kind enough to give me, and I'm just making that be like my card game backpack now. But as far as like when I play Flesh and Blood and what I'm keeping in it, first, I actually use this for all of the different card games I play. This is like what I call my universal limited carrying case.
It's a nerd purse.
It is a Gamegenic, like hard topped, like small compartment thing that zips up. But then when you open it, it's got some extra pockets and whatever that are zippers. But the reason that I use this for limited is because space wise, it lets me take 2 of the Dragon Shield, just like cardboard box things, put them sideways, and then 1 of the, I think it's like a 100 count or whatever, just plastic tin thing. But the reason I use this for limited is because I keep spare sleeves in one of the boxes, and then I just keep the other box empty, because when I'm playing limited, I've got my sleeves for limited, and then when I sleeve up the deck goes in the empty box. Any cards I'm using for sideboard goes in the other one, so it's just a nice easy way for me to separate it with whatever card game I'm playing. And then because I use this for limited for all my card games, in the like plastic tin, I just keep a set of like generic 6-sided dice, and then I keep 1 pitch counter thing for when I'm playing Flesh and Blood. So for this one, I keep my special Barcelona Worlds one in here. And then for specific deck stuff for Flesh and Blood, so that's my like little limited thing that's always in my bag. I have I think these are just called the Tower.
Those are towers, yeah.
Yeah, so they're Gamegenic towers, right? They've got the little drawer. So I keep my decks in those, and then in the like little drawers, as far as like tokens go, I try when possible, because I'm a weirdo who likes accessorizing. I try to have stuff that like kind of matches at least. So when I'm playing Assassin, I have the Fab Metal tokens like Assassin set for things, right? So it's the -1, -2 armor things, but they're all like blood splattered. And then similarly, there's like the mini token that's blood splattered that's got the go again and the dominate on the other side. Little plus attack tokens, right? So I use this usually when I'm playing assassin. I also keep some 6-sided dice in here as well for rolling to see who goes first, or randomization as needed. And then I keep one of the big tunic dice in this one. And then when I'm playing any of the Guardian stuff or Bravo, I have a similar drawer. This one, I think this one was the one from
Baltimore, isn't it? Yeah,
I think
so.
So again, pitch die. This one's blue, so I play it with Bravo. Big tunic dice, right? Still have Fab metal tokens, but these are just the regular silver ones, no blood splattered, cool effect. And I also keep 6-sided dice again, same thing, randomization. But the big thing that's different between this is because the Guardian attacks tend to go tall, I keep the streamer or stream sized like attack dice things that go all the way up to like plus 16 or whatever, because I'm crippling, crushing, and sometimes doing crazy stuff. So this is the one that I use for Guardians. So I just have like a drawer with like matching token sets, but most of them are Fab metal tokens for like the armor tokens that go against stuff, whatever. And then it's a mix of, like I said, for the assassin stuff, I just use the assassin set that Fab metal tokens did. For Guardian, I used the big dice because they just go to bigger numbers. Yeah, so that's my Flesh and Blood token setup.
That's an awful lot of shit for a game you don't play.
Yeah, I know, right?
Have you considered playing it? So you've considered it. That's good to know.
Yeah, I've considered it.
All right. Last question, and this one might take a while. This one's from Iceberg. Listener question. How worried are you guys about the impact of tariffs for Fab? Specifically with the price of high seas, we know the hype is real and likely will be hard to get product specifically in the US because of US Nats. Will this compound already existing concerns, and what do you foresee a booster box price landing at? Oh, fuck. Okay. So, couple of quick things before diving in. Face first. There's a really good hashtag no free ads. There is a really good video out there by MinMax explaining tariffs, how they work, from a U.S. retailer perspective, or even deeper than that, and what the concerns are and how they're going to affect consumers. Long story short, a tariff is a tax on goods once they cross the threshold of the country. So if you happen to purchase something from, let's say, New Zealand, and the thing you purchased from New Zealand costs $300. Okay. As soon as it crosses the U.S. border and gets into the U.S., it is then subject to, for you to obtain your product, you would then have to pay if it's a 10% tariff, you have to pay $30 extra. So you're paying $330. The New Zealand sees 300. They don't see 330 of it. That 30 just goes straight to the government. And so now you bake in your prices for things, and you're baking them in at 300 when you order something. Then if you get slapped with a tariff prior to the thing crossing into the US, now that thing that you thought was going to cost 300, and you've done all your pricing at the thing costing you $300, now costs $330. Are you going to eat that money, or are you going to pass it on in cost to the consumer? I'll let you think on that for a moment while I say this is fucking bad for us, because it is a 10% tariff across the board on minimum. All things. Yeah, that's the minimum. And we are in the throes of entering into a full-blown trade war with China, by the way, as the current prevailing theory, if the administration decides to go through with it, would be that Chinese goods are tariffed at 104%, which, spoiler alert, means you're paying fucking double and then some for anything coming in that you thought you were in. Again, this would apply to orders that you placed months ago. So very bad. Now let's apply this to TCGs. Now, the best thing possible would be that the distributors have already received the product for high seas. The odds are that hasn't happened. But if they are already there when the tariffs were enacted, you don't have to then pay tariffs on them. They're already here. There's also been, a price increase on Flesh and Blood product already. You may have noticed that MAP went up, MSRP went up with Hunted. So we've already seen a price increase. I don't know if that was baked in because of tariffs or not. The threat of them under administration or not. I don't know exactly how that worked out. But prices are going to go up. That's it. That's not haram. That's just exactly what it's going to be. And the reasoning for these tariffs are as simple as wanting to get more things made in the United States. So, couple of other problems with that. Let's say that somebody said, okay, I'm going to build a printing facility in the United States. One, you would have to exceed the quality of what already exists in Belgium and Japan, which, yes, we've seen issues, but you have to understand how much these things are printing. And by the metric of how much is printed, the percentage of error is dramatically low, like ludicrously so. So that's step one. Step two is you still have to acquire the raw materials to print onto, which frequently come from different countries. And the other thing is it takes months to build factories. It's not like tomorrow I can say, Simsalabim, here's a fucking factory. That's not how shit works. So let's say that you decide that I'm willing to put the investment forward and build these factories. Okay. Then midway through building, they say, okay, well, we reached some trade agreements. We're lifting the tariffs. Now what? Are you thinking you can compete with countries that have the infrastructure and can do it significantly cheaper than you ever dreamed of doing it, when people can just order from them and get the thing? Are you going to be able to compete on price? Probably not. So you now have factories that you you can't use, or don't need, and contracts that people are going to be fine breaking because it's still going to be cheaper overall for them to go and get it from the place that they used to get it from, and with quality that they absolutely know because they've been doing it for years. So that's the problem. And that question here is, where do you see booster box prices landing at? I think that you're probably looking at things being, MAP being a thing of the past, specifically in the US. And you're basically paying MSRP for everything. So in my LGSs, they sold everything. They sold booster boxes at MAP, right? Not at MSRP. So going forward, specifically, especially if distro doesn't have the shit yet, you're going to be seeing these things at MSRP for boxes, which for high seas, let me pull up the product sheet really quick. Blah, blah, blah. Good enough to fuck your mother. MSRP would be 120. I would expect that that's the price you're going to pay per box. And that might be a minimum. I guess they don't call it MAP anymore. They call it UPP. So unilateral price policy is 100. And I believe that's what it was for Hunted as well. Yeah. It sucks. Like, There's no two ways about it. And I really hope you're not a board game fan.
Yeah.
Because if you...
Board games are about to have a rough...
Yeah. We're talking companies are already discussing what their shutdown looks like. Because they can't. I have a lot of friends that are in the board game industry, and there's not a single one of them that isn't panicking. 104% tariff on China would mean that's 104% tariff on their game. And so if they've had orders in because they had a fulfilled Kickstarter, they've done all the things, and they're just waiting for the shipping containers to arrive, and they're not here yet, they've effectively sold these things to people for negative profit. And they are going to die because of it. That's the impact. So if you're a fan of gaming in general, your hobbies are about to get just nuked from orbit if these things last any amount of time. I've spoken about this in our Discord and with other people, and I might have mentioned it on this show, I don't remember, but I'm very nervous about Gen Con this year.
Yeah.
I don't know if places of people that are confirmed or places that have had long-standing relationships are just going to say, I'm not coming. Like, it's not worth us doing business in the United States anymore. Even though that's been the biggest market for board games. We can't do, the distributors don't want to, pay the tariffs on the stuff that we, for us to send it over because, or they have to increase prices and they're ordering less and, insert whatever, or they want us to jump through these hoops, whatever it ends up being. And then there's also just the safety issues that exist. We have countries that have travel advisories out for coming to this country. And we're not talking like, Russia has a travel advisory or whatever, places that have historically been, not specifically allied to U.S. interests. We're talking about Western Europe, people who have historically been our allies. And they're saying, don't go there. Or if you do, be warned of X, Y, and Z. That's shameful. It just well and truly is. So things like Gen Con, things like Flesh and Blood Worlds. I don't know how, I don't know what that's going to look like. I don't know what attendance is going to look like. And I'm not trying to be dooming or fear mongering or anything else. I'm trying to say that these are concerns I have about our hobby, the thing that we enjoy together, the reason the show exists. We are a Flesh and Blood show, but we're a gaming show. Like we talk about the things that we love, and a lot of that revolves around games and the friendships we've made through games, including the relationship that Darick and I have. And to see that come under a very real, very existential threat, is in and of itself, sad and demoralizing. And that's not even to mention the rest of the shit that's going on in this country, which is beyond sad and demoralizing. It's right. Terrifying. So I don't know. I think that if you are an enjoyer of games, an enjoyer of the camaraderie that comes with them, do your best to enjoy them as much as you can right now, because it's going to be a bumpy road. Unless something happens dramatically to reverse a lot of some of these decisions in general, it is not looking great. So high C specifically, 120 a box, and if this all sticks, I wouldn't be surprised to start seeing 140, 150, and $600 cases. Just not much else to do. sadly. I guess thankfully LSS doesn't print in China. Like, I guess that's one thing that we do have going for us, because it'd just be way even worse at that point.
I just wanted to add, for the folks, you know, that are US based, especially, another thing that you really, like, I think just need to know going into all of this is that the hobby gaming industry, whether it's board games, TCGs, whatever, like, your LGSs usually do not have really like high profit margins. Historically, and as somebody who's like lived through a lot of recessions, like I worked for a comic and gaming store when we went through the recession that occurred post 9/11. That was impacted. That was a rough time. Obviously, I was playing games during the 2008 time, et cetera, et cetera. The thing that you have to understand is that those are usually the stores that are hit the hardest and hit the earliest when you have any sort of economic issues, because they are a luxury expenditure, right? So when things are getting more and more expensive, and when things are forcing you to make tough decisions, right? Whether it's comics, whether it's board games, whether it's card games, you know, if your choice is like, hey, I can get groceries, or hey, I can, you know, pay for my kids' braces, or like I can buy Flesh and Blood. The problem is that, you know, buying comics, buying Flesh and Blood, buying whatever are the things that get budgeted out first. And so I mostly mention it because while, you know, if you're listening, if you have the means, and while you still have the means and whatever, just make sure that you're doing your best to support your LGS if you can, and, you know, just kind of give them some grace as they're trying to work through this as well, because it's not like they asked for any of this, unless they're the type of LGS that starts fights in the parking lot. Then I assume that they voted for this, but other than that, most of them did not like want these policies to start impacting their business. And like I said, the hobby gaming industry just historically has always been hit very, very hard, because like I said, it is a luxury expenditure. It is not something that, you know, people need. I will joke and say I need it, but, you know, if my choice is, you know, between doing stuff for my family or the game, my family's always going to come first. And you know, there's nothing we can really do about that. So just kind of keep that in mind when you're up at your store and as you are navigating this as well.
I mean, this will stay here, because this doesn't really cost us anything to do. Just time. I paid for all the, you know, software and subscriptions and everything, at least through the year. So there's that.
Yeah.
But I feel for all of the game manufacturers out there, all the publishers, even like Dragon Shield, who Dragon Shield stuff is made in Denmark.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's an extra percentage too. Like the Armory decks, I've got one right here. Where was this made? Belgium. So yeah. There's Belgium again. You know, like all of that stuff is going to get hit. And it makes things a lot harder. And hopefully fingers crossed, cooler heads somewhere prevail. And somebody goes, wait a second, I think destabilizing the global economy is a bad thing, right? But that would require there to be adults in the room, and I'm pretty sure that they are fresh out of them in this country at the current.
Yeah.
That's enough dooming. Let's thank some patrons. How about that? That sounds like a good idea. Let's start with our associate producers. We have Aladoris, Andy, Sindra, Ejor is back, hanging out with us again on the Patreon. Jacob, Larry, the Goat, the Salty Sea Cat, and Zaris. Our executive producers on up are Blaze Storm, value member of the Patreon, Diana, and this is where there's a hole in my heart. Because Lance Goodthrust's name is not on this list.
What?
I don't know what happened.
That's how you know the recession is real.
Right. I have lost my smile. Because I can't Goodthrust the way I want to. And that's right here. That just gets me right in the heart.
He's gonna sign back up, but it's gonna be Lance Bad Thrust.
Or Lance Turbo Thrust.
Lance Storm.
Well, I mean, I think it was Lance
Storm.
What if
it was Lance Storm?
It's like literally Lance Storm all along.
Oh man,
that'd be so sick.
That would make me.
Yeah. I mean, he's Canadian though, so I don't know.
I mean, that's a plus in my book. I don't know.
Well, I mean, I don't think that I had anybody on here specifically that I sent stuff to Canada for, but maybe I'm wrong. Any rate, so Micaiah, Poxanus, Vintox, Nonbo, Riptide Enthusiast, Philip, Brandon, Matt, the first Chargers Chamber Charcoal participant, the Jackal, the Papa Jackal up on deck. He's pitting and plotting for when his time at the mic will be. He's hit the required numbers. Oren Hammer Bro, one more month, and he is also on deck to join us as a host. And then Polish Guy Rich, also 1 month away from getting in here and getting up to some fucking nonsense. So thank you everybody who contributes to our Patreon. It's very rewarding to us, and we hope we can keep doing this for you, even though in reality we do this for us. But also, again, hashtag no free ads here, but if you're on Blue Sky, please go and search up Green Tree Sports Cards. They are now operating in the Blue Sky space, and they're doing some bullshit where they need to hit 200 followers, which is a pittance, people. Just go out there, hit the follow button, and then they're going to announce some stuff. And we have missed the Green Tree folks something fierce, as we don't get to see them as much as we used to. And, you know, that's Sin, that's John, that's Jeffo, that's the entire crew, man. And I love that crew. Just good people all around. If you do need to contact us, you can go to, wait a second. Hold on. Damn. I didn't notice the Ezur's profile picture on Patreon. That's sick. At any rate, if you need to contact us, you can find us, send us an email at fleshandpod@gmail.com. That was not English. You can also just find us on Blue Sky. Just search Flesh and Pod. Best thing to do, join our Discord. Links in the show notes. And if you want to become a patron, you can go to patreon.com/fleshandpod. That link's also in the show notes. Some number of tiers and cheers to choose from. Paid tiers will get you into, yeah, you can laugh at that. That's fine.
No, in my head, I was
Cheers and Cheers, the TV guide thing.
No, I said in my head, Tears for Cheers, like Tears for Fears, but yeah. It was Tears for Cheers. And I was like, yeah, that would be our garage band name if we ever did one.
Really would.
I'd be the Tears and you'd be the Cheers.
Yeah, something like that. I also had somebody today say, I can't imagine what being like alive during 9/11 would be like. And I was just like, right. Cool. But yeah, you can join the Discord. It's free. Just click the link in the show notes. Come hang out with us. If you do join the Patreon at a paid tier, you can come to FAP After Dark. We had one of those last week, and we got up and talking about some nonsense up in there. Greg was shirtless, playing with his knob, and it was really spiritual, honestly. So if you want to come and hang out and do that and talk nonsense, once a month for a few hours with us, unrecorded, everything, yeah, come hang out. Charmer, where can they find you? Oh no,
they just can't.
Okay.
I don't know, if you walk into a room and you feel a light breeze from overhead, just look up. Also in the Discord, also on Blue Sky, I'm already following Green Tree.
Me too.
I've done my part.
I'm doing my part.
Right.
That's Starship Troopers. Like, we're almost there, actually. We're somewhere between Starship Troopers and Idiocracy right now, and I don't think that that's a good thing.
It is not.
But it is what it is. But yeah, that's our show for this week. I will be hopping on a plane to London in less than 24 hours. And so if you're going to be in London, please find me. I'm the idiot that has the flesh and pod bag. I'm pretty easy to find. Also a giant beard, usually wearing green. Yeah, I am the most conspicuous motherfucker on the planet most of the time. So yeah, you'll find me. It'll be easy. But yeah, otherwise I'll be recording from jolly old England next week, and then back in the States after that, maybe, allegedly. We'll see. But until then, be good, take care of yourselves, take care of each other, and do crimes. I'm into that. We just do crimes now, because they've decided the rules don't matter. Fuck it, I guess. Do crimes, whatever. I don't mean that literally. Well, maybe I do. Get up to some good trouble. Let's put it that way. And we'll talk to y'all next week. Bye.